A new poll from Bloomberg and Rates.ca is suggesting that 55% of homeowners can't afford inflation or rising costs. But is that really the story here? Is it really a story about inflation, or is it really a story about people's spending habits? I think it's probably the latter, and we're going to discuss that in today's video. The definitive guide on how to manage your credit: product, penalty, price, in that order. It's never been more important to get your mortgage right. All right, so welcome back. Today we are discussing the fact that 55% of homeowners now say that they are strapped for cash when it comes to inflation and higher prices and higher interest rates. And we're going to discuss all the details of that in today's video and what it really means and what the story really is here for Canadians and how you can buffer yourself against higher interest rates, higher levels of inflation, and higher costs across the board. But before we get into it, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. And don't forget about our race to 25,000 subscribers. You can enter that giveaway now by going to 360giveaway.ca, and you can get an additional entry for following me on Instagram and sharing that contest on social media. So make sure you do both of those to be entered for that $5,000 that we're going to give away on July 1st. All right, so let's get into it. Let's discuss the headlines here as we always do. We're going to look at the Bloomberg headline. Survey shows 55% of homeowners strapped for extra costs. This is coming from a Bloomberg and Rates.ca study that was conducted between May 13th and May 15th and surveyed about 1,500 Canadians, which, just so you know, from a sample size perspective, is typically a fairly good cross-section of the population to survey when you're looking for consistent data. Now, recent polls with respect to national elections and provincial elections have proven that these surveys are less effective, especially as millennials move to more digital forms of technology. But for the most part, you can rest assured that these numbers are probably pretty accurate from a statistical standpoint, which means we've got some Canadians that have some problems when it comes to money. But is inflation and higher interest rates the cause of the problem, or are they just a symptom of the reality that Canadians are facing with respect to their spending habits? And let's call a spade right now. Canadians have had an issue with spending for quite some time, especially when it comes to their debt levels. And this is starting to show as we enter a period where higher interest rates are on their way, as well as higher costs are coming across the board on pretty much everything. And while Bloomberg does a really good job of covering the story, I want to take you to Rates.ca's website and show you exactly what's going on there, because they go into much further depth on this and they have some better graphs and some better visuals with respect to what's going on. Now, as you can see, their headline is slightly different. Nearly 40% of homeowners are concerned about their finances, half of whom bought during the pandemic. So they're taking a little bit different approach to the story, and they're talking about the fact that half of the people who bought during the pandemic are now facing some hardships in their finance. Now, some of these may be variable rate mortgage holders, some of them may be fixed rate mortgage holders, but here is the key. The key thing here is that regardless of whether you chose fixed or variable, if you haven't been saving money for the last 5, 10, 15 years, and you aren't saving money now, if you aren't taking a dime out of a dollar, you probably aren't going to take 1,000 out of 10,000 or 10,000 out of 100,000. And this is the key thing that needs to change for Canadians, is our savings rates need to go up. And one of the things that this survey talks about is that most people aren't able to save 10% of their money. That is absolutely absurd. And the problem here is that people are looking at it and going, what do I have left over at the end of the day? Rather than looking at it from the perspective of how do I take 10% or 15% or 20% off the top and then use the rest of my money for my expenses, rather than taking my expenses off first and then trying to put away what I've saved. And the reality here is that everyone knows that they should be paying themselves first, but nobody actually goes ahead and does it, which is the single biggest mistake people make. They apply for a mortgage, they get approved for X amount, and then they realize that they have taxes, and then they realize that they have all these other expenses that come along with owning a home. And before they know it, they're pretty much out of cash at the end of the month. And here's the way people need to be approaching their finances. And this comes from a book that I read in the last couple of years. It's called Profit First. And that book talks about how you should be taking your money every single month, and as soon as you get your paycheck, you should be pulling 10 to 20% off of it, and then looking at the amount of money that you have left over and using that to pay your mortgage, to pay your expenses, to pay for everything else. Because if you're doing that consistently, whether you are in a good economy or a bad economy, when things turn around and go the wrong way, like they seem to be going for people right now, Well, then you've got money set aside for the future so that if there is a rainy day, you can weather yourself through it. And what surveys like this are telling us when you look at the headlines, like 50% of homeowners concerned about their finances bought less than 2 years ago, and most Canadians saved some monthly income, but not a lot. And fewer than half of homeowners could afford an extra $500 in monthly costs. Well, what this tells us is that the problem isn't inflation, it isn't higher interest rates, it is bad money habits from the start. And if they didn't have these bad money habits, if you didn't have these bad money habits, then things like higher inflation and higher interest rates wouldn't be a problem. This is why we've tried to tell so many people over the last couple of years that they should be taking variable rate mortgages, and not just taking variable or adjustable rate mortgages, but taking advantage of the lower payment and taking that money and putting it aside for a rainy day. Now, my guess is that a lot of people who took variable rate mortgages or adjustable rate mortgages haven't set up an automatic savings plan, and that is probably the single biggest mistake that people are making. They've gone out and they've continued to spend the savings that they've had by having lower interest rate while not preparing for higher interest rates that are coming down the road. That is what's going to cause financial hardship if you have a mortgage. And by the way, if you have a fixed rate mortgage, don't think you are out of the woods on this, because in 3 to 5 years, when your mortgage comes up for renewal, you're going to face the exact same problem. The bigger problem is that you're going to face it on a significantly bigger scale when your interest rates goes from 1.85 or 1.95 to 4 or 5% overnight at renewal. So this is why we've always suggested adjustable rate mortgages, because you feel the interest rate increases gradually over time rather than feeling them substantially at the renewal period. And if you remember back to 2008, one of the big causes of the financial crisis in 2008 was when a whole bunch of adjustable rate mortgages came up for renewal. And because they adjusted to a higher interest rate, it put the borrowers in a position where they could no longer afford their payments, and that led to a major crash. So if you are in a fixed or a variable rate mortgage right now, you need to be thinking about that point in time, 3 to 5 years down the road, where your mortgage will come up for renewal, and you need to be saving for it now and adjusting your payments and adjusting your lifestyle right now. You can't wait for this, because everything's going to get more expensive. Inflation is here. Goods are going to get more expensive. Fuel is going to get more expensive. And it's your job to start thinking about how you deal with those higher costs. And that includes everything from getting a better job to doing whatever you need to do in order to increase your skill set so you can earn more, to figuring out how you can be investing more on a regular basis and where you can be cutting back your lifestyle so that you have money put aside for your future and for your retirement. And this is not the time to be worried about your coffee going from $3 to $3.15 or your Big Mac going from $5 to $5.50. This is a time where you need to be thinking about big swings in the money that you can save. And that means doing things to earn more income, maybe creating a side hustle, saving on the fees that you're paying on your investments, and just doing everything you can to make sure that you can earn as much money and also save as much money as things get more and more expensive. Because there are going to be people that come out of this pandemic significantly better off than they were previously. And there's also going to be those people who think that they're better off right now, but who continue to spend, have significant lifestyle creep, and as a result end up in a position where they have no money left at the end of their paycheck. And I want to make sure that that's not you. So the single best thing that you can do right now is sit down, take a look at your finances, and figure out how you can get 20% of your money put aside every month before you even spend $1. And if it's not 20%, then try 10%. And if it's not 10%, then try 5%. But whatever you do, make a plan so that that number is increasing on a monthly basis and you're putting more aside every single month than you were the previous month. Figure out where you can reduce those lifestyle costs. Maybe you don't need that Netflix and that Crave subscription. Maybe you don't need that Apple Music subscription. Maybe you don't need to be buying the high-end ribeye when a sirloin will do. But figure out where you can cut back some of your costs, but most importantly, figure out where you can make the big swings. And I'm going to tell you right now that with the job market as tight as it is, with things as tight as they are, with there being as little available labor as there is right now, there's never been a better time to negotiate a higher wage, work your butt off in order to get it, or look for a new job where you can make significantly more money. And at the end of the day, when you do end up making more money, don't let lifestyle creep happen to you. Don't just keep spending and spending and spending. When you get that more money job, when you get that side hustle that makes you a little bit more money, take that extra income, put it aside, and make sure that you've put it aside so it's growing for your future. If you found this video useful, do me that favor, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Please hit that like button so more people like you can see this video. Don't forget about our race to 25,000 subscribers, and we'll see you on the very next one. Cheers.